The Achaemenid Empire left a lasting impression on the heritage and cultural identity of Asia, Europe and the Middle East, and influenced the development and structure of future empires. In fact, the Greeks, and later on the Romans, adopted the best features of the Persian method of governing an empire. The Persian model of governance was particularly formative in the expansion and maintenance of the Abbasid Caliphate, whose rule is widely considered the period of the Islamic Golden Age. Like the ancient Persians, the Abbasid dynasty centered their vast empire in Mesopotamia, at the newly founded cities of Baghdad and Samarra, close to the historical site of Babylon, derived much of their support from Persian aristocracy and heavily incorporated the Persian language and architecture into Islamic culture. Quote, "The Achaemenid Empire is noted in Western history as the antagonist of the Greek city-states during the Greco-Persian Wars and for the emancipation of the Jewish exiles in Babylon. The historical mark of the empire went far beyond its territorial and military influences and included cultural, social, technological and religious influences as well. For example, many Athenians adopted Achaemenid customs in their daily lives in a reciprocal cultural exchange, some being employed by or allied to the Persian kings. The impact of the Edict of Cyrus is mentioned in Judeo-Christian texts, and the empire was instrumental in the spread of Zoroastrianism as far east as China. The empire also set the tone for the politics, heritage and history of Iran, also known as Persia. Historian Arnold Toynbee regarded Abbasid society as a reintegration, or reincarnation, of Achaemenid society, as the synthesis of Persian, Turkic and Islamic modes of governance and knowledge allowed for the spread of Persianate culture over a wide swath of Eurasia through the Turkic origin Seljuk, Ottoman, Safavid and Mughal empires. Historian Bernard Lewis wrote that, "The work of Iranians can be seen in every field of cultural endeavor, including Arabic poetry, to which poets of Iranian origin composing their poems in Arabic made a very significant contribution. In a sense, Iranian Islam is a second advent of Islam itself, a new Islam sometimes referred to as Islam-i-Ajam. It was this Persian Islam, rather than the original Arab Islam, that was brought to new areas and new peoples. To the Turks, first in Central Asia and then in the Middle East in the country which came to be called Turkey, and of course to India. The Ottoman Turks brought a form of Iranian civilization to the walls of Vienna. By the time of the great Mongol invasions of the 13th century, Iranian Islam had become not only an important component, it had become a dominant element in Islam itself. And for several centuries the main centers of the Islamic power and civilization were in countries that were, if not Iranian, at least marked by Iranian civilization. The major centers of Islam in the late medieval and early modern periods, the centers of both political and cultural power, such as India, Central Asia, Iran, Turkey, were all part of this Iranian civilization. Georg W. F. Hegel in his work The Philosophy of History introduces the Persian Empire as the first empire that passed away, and its people as the first historical people in history. According to his account, the Persian Empire is an empire in the modern sense, like that which existed in Germany, and the great imperial realm under the sway of Napoleon. For we find it consisting of a number of states, which are indeed dependent, but which have retained their own individuality, their manners, and laws. The general enactments, binding upon all, did not infringe upon the political and social idiosyncrasies, but even protected and maintained them. so that each of the nations that constitute the whole had its own form of constitution. As light illuminates everything, imparting to each object a peculiar vitality, so the Persian Empire extends over a multitude of nations, and leaves to each one its particular character. Some have even kings of their own, each one its distinct language, arms, way of life and customs. All this diversity coexists harmoniously under the impartial dominion of light, a combination of peoples, leaving each of them free. Thereby, a stop is put to that barbarism and ferocity with which the nations had been wont to carry on their destructive feuds. Durant, the American historian and philosopher, during one of his speeches, Persia in the History of Civilization, as an address before the Iran-America Society in Tehran on 21 April 1948, stated, "For thousands of years Persians have been creating beauty. 16 centuries before Christ there went from these regions or near it. You have been here a kind of watershed of civilization, pouring your blood and thought and art and religion eastward and westward into the world. I need not rehearse for you again the achievements of your Achaemenid period. Then for the first time in known history an empire almost as extensive as the United States received an orderly government, a competence of administration, a web of swift communications, a security of movement by men and goods on majestic roads, equaled before our time only by the zenith of imperial Rome.